Welcome to the Enneagram Podcast, where we slow down and talk about what matters. This podcast was recorded at the Hope FM podcast studio and is brought to you by P39 Adventure Gear. I'm your host, Austin Hewlett, and joined with us today, as always, is our co-host and my dad, Aaron Hewlett. And on today's episode, we sit down with Kristy McBride. Kristy is a phenomenal endurance athlete that has many accolades in the sport, whether it be long ultra and distance trail racing on both foot and on bike. She's competed in the Western States, the legendary Marji Gesick 100. She's also done the world's toughest mudder. I could go on and on about the events that she's been a part of. In our conversation, though, we unpacked a lot of things, from her events and races to transitioning into things like motherhood and homeschooling for her kids. We even got into a little bit about her faith background and how that's kind of interwoven into her races, events, her mindset. It's a really good conversation. We dabble with a ton of different topics, and all around, we were grateful for having her sitting down and to jump in. So hope you enjoyed the conversation, and let's get into it. Kristy, thank you for joining us. Welcome to the podcast, especially coming off of a long road trip we were just talking about before we started. The trip from New York to Marquette. How many hours did you say it was?
It took us about 16 hours to get home.
Okay. Yeah, that's I feel like I got to rehash what I said earlier because it's so close to home, long car rides with young kids. So I'll say it briefly and then we'll get on. But I just got off of that. Again, I was telling you the trip from where we're at, which is in Port Huron, Michigan. Are you familiar with the area at all? Have you ever been down?
A little bit, yeah. We lived downstate for a few years.
Okay, I was going to say, because the bridge to cross over to Canada, it's here. It's usually, if anyone knows about it, that's what they know. But that to Marquette is about 7 hours. And I tell you what, that 7-hour trip with my 1-year-old and 3-year-old turned into, I think we left at like 8 and we got there at like 6 or 7. And 80% of that car ride was my 1-year-old just screaming, crying. And us trying to do everything we possibly could to help her. While the other one was just in like la la land, just fine. 3.5-year-old Maggie. She's just coloring. She's, doing her thing. And we even tried like putting on a little movie for that 1-year-old, but obviously they're so young. She doesn't really, never watches TV. So to her, it was like, I thought like, oh, maybe that will be like a forbidden fruit. She's never had it. And now she gets it. And so it really stimulated. No, it didn't work. So she's blowing out left and right. I think we had like 2 or 3 blowouts on that car ride.
Diaper changes.
Yes. Yeah, it was it was traumatizing. So
this is a great segue to what we're going to talk about with Kristy, because we're going to talk about endurance. And when you go through long, hard things in life, you have problems. You have blowouts.
Yes, you have blowouts.
That is true.
Which is perfect, because as I was prepping for this podcast and conversation, I was kind of going back through. You sent me a bio, all the things you've done. I saw a really good interview that you did with one of your, I'm assuming, a previous sponsor you had, what was the name of the sponsor?
Exoskin.
Yes, Exoskin. Thank you. Which was a really good interview, and it gave me a lot of your background as well. But the amount of things that you've done is absolutely insane. From endurance events to physical events to CrossFit to coaching to everything in between. And so as I was kind of unpacking that, I'm trying to figure out like what is driving this animal to do all these things. It doesn't seem like you ever take the easy route. And so I wanted to kind of start off with what's the driving force? Why have you kind of been so focused around doing a lot of these challenges consistently?
I think the driving force has changed over the years. I think initially when I got into, it started with OCR and then it kind of gradually got into the endurance world. I think initially it was all about kind of proving myself in that aspect. But I think as I've gotten older, it's been more just about exploring the gifts that God's given me and seeing what I can do with them and trying to glorify Him through it. So it's definitely changed throughout the years. But I've learned my number one gift that I've been given is mental toughness. I'm good at suffering. So I'm not exactly like the top physical athlete in any of these things. There's people who are stronger and faster than me physically, but I will have more grit than anyone out there. I don't think there's anyone that can push harder than I can.
I love that mindset.
That's my gift.
I love that too.
Just hearing that, it just gave me a little bit of like, okay, I'm going to work out today. I was thinking about not working out, but I'm going to work out today though. But
what would Kristy do?
Yeah, right. After this podcast, that's going to be playing in my head. I'm curious where that started. I knew you grew up in New York. We were just talking about you came from New York. Tell me a little bit about growing up in New York.
Yeah, I think it actually started with my grandpa. He is 102 years old and he still lives on his own.
Wow.
He is an old Italian guy and he is as gritty as they come. And he taught me from a young age that like you don't quit anything that you start. You work hard. Like that's just how life is. You work for everything you have. And even when I was like 5 years old and I wanted money to go to the local amusement park, I'd have to like fold 100 napkins at his restaurant before I got $20 to go play games and ride rides. Everything was always about you have to work for it. So he taught me that from a young age to have a good work ethic and to not give up on anything.
Man, what a great lesson.
Yeah, that's crazy. And does that tie into, now reflecting back on that, you see the positives that were gained from it, like you're noting now, how that's built the mindset and everything. Do you see any negatives or drawbacks that also came with it, the downsides of growing up in that type of, mindset, kind of being pushed into physical activities, or rather this effort equals reward, so I always have to put in the effort before I can have the reward?
Yeah, I definitely think there is some. I think it maybe made me a little too hard in some ways. I've learned over the last probably 10 years to kind of tone things down a little bit and to let people in a little more. And I don't always have to have that tough exterior and have to be strong all the time.
And when you say that, having to tone things down, did that come out? Was that exposed through anything in particular that happened in life, relationships, anything?
Probably moving to Michigan, honestly. People in New York are very different than Michiganders. We're pretty abrasive. So when I moved to Michigan, I kind of learned quickly that, all right, I need to kind of tap into the Midwestern nice a little bit.
There is a Midwestern nice too. That's so accurate. So going back to your childhood, though, something I saw that was interesting was you went to these hunting camps growing up. Is your grandfather's hunting camp? Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah. My grandfather had a camp up in the Adirondacks. Couple hundred acres and next to lots of public land. So we would go up there all the time during the summer. And most of the time it was honestly working. We would be in the woods cleaning up trails for most of the day. But as soon as we got done, we could ride the four-wheeler. So that was the reward afterwards.
That's awesome. Right. What age were you at around here?
I think my first time I was probably about 5 when I went up there, but it was all the way through high school and even college. We still went up there.
Okay. So most of it consisted of kind of the upkeep of the camp itself rather than going to hunt.
Yeah, I never hunted with my grandpa. It was like the guys got to go hunt in the fall. He just made the grandkids come up and work all summer.
Okay. Did you have any brothers or sisters then?
I was the only child.
Oh, okay. So I was wondering if there was a bit of a jealousy. Your brother maybe was the one that got to go hunting, but not you. But so
Nope.
Outside of the hunting camps, did you get to go hunting at all, or was the dynamic more like it was a male-dominated thing growing up for you guys? So you were kind of shunned away from that.
I think growing up, it was definitely more male dominated. We got to shoot and stuff over the summer when we were there. But I do hunt. I bow hunt. But that started after I had graduated high school.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah,
it wasn't on the bio.
The bow hunting
That's
here?
That's cool. I didn't know you did that too.
With the bow hunting,
what don't you do, Kristy? We got to talk about what she's
so
done
much.
too.
Yeah, there
we got to
really
go in
is so
before we
much.
get into
Oh
it
gosh,
too much. We
I've
got to
tried
talk
most
about.
things.
I mean, please lead the way if there's something specific here. But yeah, as I was going through this, there was like, man, I could talk about this. We could talk about this.
Yeah.
And I mean, you did the Western States, there's so much there to unpack. I got into my dad and I when we were doing the training for the Marji Gesick 100. The run. Because my dad's done the bike portion of it many times. But we got really deep into ultra running. I'd never really done it before. This was years ago. Long distance running was never really my thing. I'd always kind of liked exercise and movement. That's always been a part of my life. But this threw me into the deep end, and I have a bit of an obsessive personality too. So once I find something I like, I go all in on it. And so for that, it was just before COVID, about 2-year period where we trained, led up to the Marji, did the Marji. And then after that, I was like, I need more of this. Like, I have to have more. Like, this is incredible. The people, the environment that draws in the type of people that you see at these events is just, they're so kind, they're so giving. That on top of just the fun of running through trails all day long, both in the training aspect and obviously in the racing aspect, just hooked me. And so in that, I started diving into what other races are out there. And the Western States, of course, is one of the most prominent ones. So I have to ask about the Western States. I mean, is that you went in back in like 2017 or 2017 or 2016?
2017.
2017.
Yep, I ran. Mm-hmm.
And then was that the only time you were able to run? Because it's usually like a lottery system to get in. Is that right?
Yeah. So I got in with one ticket, which is really hard to do. I think
Yeah.
the numbers, it's less than 1% get in with one ticket in it. So I got in with one ticket. I ran Kettle Moraine 100 as my first 100-miler, and I just threw my name in Western States just to be able to start accumulating tickets, because it was a goal that I saw maybe happening 5 years down the road.
Yeah.
And I got in
Right away.
So
Cool.
yeah. So I had to hire a running coach, and I was like, all right, I got to figure this out because I'm in way over my head.
Yes.
So it was such a cool experience. That race is amazing.
That's so awesome. To back up a little bit to give people maybe that aren't familiar with Western States, what was your background or familiarity with Western States? And can you give a little bit, paint a picture of that for listeners?
Honestly, I had none.
Okay.
Like, I didn't know anything about Western States until after I ran that first 100-miler. And that was kind of like my intro to the ultra world. I had been doing these obstacle course races, and it was actually a lady that I worked with. Her husband was an ultra runner, and he kind of started picking on me a little. And he's like, oh, sure, you can do these obstacle course races and run 30 miles or 50 miles during that, but could you do an ultra? Could you just run? And I was like, sure, what's so hard about it? So I decided to kind of check out that world. Turns out it's pretty hard.
Yeah.
But that was how I got into it. So he was kind of leading me into that. And I ran, I think I'd only done 150-miler before I did that first 100-miler. And after that, I started looking into things a little more, and I was like, oh, I could put my name in for this cool race.
Yeah, that's
So
awesome.
yeah, I knew nothing about it until I was signing up for it.
When you had signed up for it, or rather when you got there, I should say, did you have, because you were still new to the sport and ultra running, did you research like, oh, what were the top finishers here? Who are some of the female athletes in the sport that are kind of most people gravitate towards as, the top competitors? Did you have a background to where when you went there, you started seeing those people in the flesh? And you're like, wow, that's Courtney DeWalter. That's, fill in the blank.
Not even a little bit.
No? So you were just totally foreign to it.
I was totally new to it. I had like a personal goal of definitely breaking the 24-hour mark, and I wanted to do a little better than that. I thought maybe I could crack top 10. That was kind of my goal. But as we were running, I was running with this other girl, and we passed some of those top female athletes that were having a really rough day. So she started pointing them out. She's like, I can't believe we just passed so-and-so. She's like, we must be running too fast. And I'm like, I don't know who that is, but I feel good, so let's keep going.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I didn't know who anyone was. I was totally foreign to the sport.
That's crazy. Wow.
Yeah.
It's funny because when we did Marji, I had these goals, these ideas of like the time we could do. And again, I had never ran a marathon. I went from zero to an ultra marathon.
I don't know if any of us had ran, because my other son Dylan did it with us. I don't think any of us had ran more than a 10K or something before we signed up for the 100.
I think maybe I had ran a half marathon, I want to say.
Did you? You were the longest runner of all of us then.
Yeah,
I hadn't done. I think I did a 10K once before that.
So we came in basically couch to ultra was the scenario that we came into. But getting back to my obsessiveness with things.
Well said.
I remember I went to a physical therapist because I was having some issues with my my glute medius when I was running. It was really acting up, and she's like, "Yeah, what are you training for?" I was like, "Oh, I'm training for this 100-mile race, blah blah blah." And that was completely foreign to her, and so she was fascinated by that. And she's like, "Wow, like what's your training look like?" I'm like, "I don't know. I just started. I've never done any running." And she was like, she gathered like everyone in the office was so like just amazed at like. One, the concept of a 100-mile race through trails and high elevation gain, all that stuff. But two, that I was going from couch to ultra, and that almost gave me like a little ego confidence boost. I was like, oh yeah, no big deal. I got this. Of course.
When you tell people, like what you do, and I used to do a lot of 50 and 100-mile mountain bike races, and I actually for a while stopped telling people what I did because they just looked at me like, what? Like you're literally a crazy person. You've probably had that happen, Kristy, too. And for the audience at home, in case you're wondering what we're talking about, if you haven't heard of Western States or Marji Gesick, which a lot of people haven't, these are typically, the two we're referencing are roughly 100-mile. A lot of these are 100-mile off-road races, so they're not on pavement. They're not around a track. It's, through the hills or the mountains. And a lot of it is somewhat self-supported. So there's people that can help you along the way. But for the most part, you don't have a caravan that follows you and waits on your every need. It doesn't work that way. So back to Kristy's point, it's grit that gets you through it. And, so to kind of put it in context, it's a very, very foreign world for most people.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So when you were getting into it, you did the ultra endurance running, you did the Western States. Did you then have that itch to continue to do more ultra endurance specific to running? And when, if so, or if not, rather, when did the mountain biking come in? Or was that before it?
No, I definitely wanted to continue with ultra running. I had finally gotten into CCC, which is over in Europe, part of UTMB. So I had qualified for that in 2020. I was supposed to run it. And of course, it got canceled because of COVID. So 2019, I ran Marji 100, and I had to get a bike for the beginning part of Marji 100. So I had gotten a bike. I was like super nervous for it. I was terrible on a bike, and I was like nervous to ride ski trail. So that was my beginning of biking. Yeah. So I had a bike. I was trying to continue my ultra running stuff. Then COVID hit, and all the races I had signed up for were canceled. So no CCC over at UTMB in France. I was supposed to run like Marquette Trail 50. That was gone. So all my big goals with running kind of got put off, and we were kind of just sitting around with COVID going on, wondering what we were going to do. And then Todd posted the Crusher EX and the Fist. So the Fist was you had to do the 50-mile bike, 100-mile bike, and the 225 Crusher, and then you had to run the 50-miler. And at the time, my husband was way more into biking than I was, but I was the runner. So I had told him, I'm like, hey, if you do the 50-mile run with me, I'll do all these bike races with you. So that was actually what kind of got me into the biking. So each one of those distance, we did the 50 first, and the next weekend we did the 100, and then 2 weeks later we did the 225. Each one of those was the furthest I had ever rode a bike.
Oh, wow. You just jumped right into it, Kristy.
That's the thing with coming from like the ultra running background is physically it isn't that hard. I wasn't good on a bike like with skill wise, but I could pedal fine,
Sure.
So it wasn't
the endurance engine was there.
It translates. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So how did CrossFit come into the picture at all? So obviously you get into, so it sounds like the progression, if I'm following you right, in terms of your background, it started with things like obstacle course racing, and then it kind of elevated to ultra endurance running, and then it kind of elevated to these ultra endurance bike trail racing. Where did CrossFit fit into that picture? How did you get involved in that?
I started CrossFit, I think, in 2015, and I did it just for strength training. I had always done like the videos at home, like Insanity and P90X, and we had moved to Charlevoix, and they had a CrossFit gym, and I was like, let's try it out, and I loved it right from the start.
Okay.
So I just started doing that for strength training.
And how did the obsession, or I don't know if I'm labeling it an obsession, obviously you can see that's a projection, but how did your love for CrossFit evolve to getting your L1 or coaching and anything like that?
I just got asked to. They needed trainers, so I got asked to get my L1, so I could help them coach. So that was how that happened. And I started doing some small CrossFit competitions and stuff just because it was fun and I was decent at it. Mm-hmm. But I don't think I would call CrossFit an obsession. Ultra running and maybe biking for sure, but CrossFit has always just been, I've always liked strength training. I've lifted since I was in high school. So that was just another way to get in strength training. Okay.
Well, I have a question for you on your CrossFit, because you started that in 2015. So that was before you got into a lot of your ultra stuff. Do you feel that strength training and what CrossFit taught you and what you put your body through in CrossFit, was that a good foundation for the other stuff that you did?
Yeah, I think so, for sure.
Okay.
I think it's a great baseline to keep the muscle, and especially with ultra running, you have to have muscle. Like you're gonna get hurt if you don't. With all the hard downhills and stuff, you've got to make your quads bomb proof.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I asked because I started CrossFit after I did most of my mountain bike racing. And I just remember thinking, before I did any ultra running too, I had done ultra running before, I should say. And I just remember thinking after about 6 months of it, and a lot of it I did, sometimes I would do at home because I have a little gym in my garage. I just remember thinking how strong my whole body got. But when I was just doing endurance stuff, like I didn't have that base strength. And I remember thinking at one point, this would have been nice to have before.
Yeah, maybe I should have started with this. Yeah.
Yeah, but...
Yeah, that definitely.
I think from an overall health standpoint, it's really good too. I mean, you need the muscle mass, but it also gives you that high intensity intervals that endurance athletes don't love to do.
Right.
So I think it just keeps you more well balanced.
Yep, absolutely. I want to circle back to something that you said earlier that to be honest, I haven't stopped thinking about it, but was this idea that, you grew up in an environment where you were kind of hard was the norm, maybe so to speak. And your grandfather set that precedent for you. As you got older, you said, you moved to the Midwest. You started to notice that, kind of rugged exterior maybe wasn't as needed or as welcomed. And you had to try to kind of shave that off. What did the process look like? And what were some specific things that happened during that transition period where you're like, man, I really need to, dial it back a little bit? Like, walk me through how you, one, became aware of that, and two, what'd you do as a result?
That's a great question. I don't know that there was any like switch that flipped. I think I just started seeing the people around me and how they interacted with each other. And I'm like, wow, they talk a lot nicer to each other. They're just, I want to emulate these people. I don't want to sound so crass. So I think that was more where it stemmed from. And part of that is church, having a good church family and seeing how people treat each other.
Now, did you find that difficult growing up when it came to, I guess you grew up in an environment where everyone was kind of like that way. I was going to ask if
Yeah, you don't see it until you're out of it.
Yeah,
Even
okay.
now when we go back there, I'm like, oh my gosh, you guys talk to each other so horribly. It's just, they really speak roughly.
Yeah. Yeah, that's funny. Was it,
But
now,
it's the norm.
now your husband, is he from the Midwest or is he also from New York?
He's from Michigan.
Okay,
Yeah.
so
So when I met him, I also knew, okay, I need to.
I was
I
just
need
going to
get
say,
in.
there had
That's
to have
why.
been some tension there, some conflict with communication from your, more, I would say, maybe would you label it direct, straightforward, and,
For sure.
and his would probably be the opposite? Is that a fair assumption?
Yes, that is a completely fair assumption. He handles me so well, though. Like right from the beginning, he made it very clear that like we're not going to talk to each other that way. That's not a healthy relationship, and that's
Okay,
not how
so
it's going to be.
he set the
So
boundary right up front.
he did.
Okay.
And he's very like he's good with handling me in a way that's direct but like soft. So
Yes.
I don't, we don't feed off each other.
Yeah. Now, how long have you guys been together?
We've been married since 2013.
Okay.
So
So it's been a
13
while.
years.
It's been a while. Okay. So now, do you still notice moments in conversations where that New Yorker comes out of you and you got to be, whoa, dial it back?
Not so much with him. I think that like our relationship has been so good. He's so good at calming me down and talking to me in a way that doesn't rile me up. I notice it the most with like being impatient, especially I love his family. This is not a bad thing about his family, but they are Midwestern and
Yep.
they tend to like tell stories in a really long way. And like you try to say goodbye and it's the Midwestern goodbye. And I
Yep.
feel that
Oh,
impatience
yeah.
coming out where I'm just like in New York, like you leave a party without even saying goodbye. You kind of just sneak out,
Yeah,
even with
that's
your
the norm.
family. It's just the norm. So I have a problem with being a little impatient. So I do find myself being like, okay, like you need to play the part a little more
Yep.
of how these people expect you to behave.
Yep. Yeah. Now, I got to imagine being a mother of two, that impatience probably got magnified by a large degree, would you say?
Yeah, and I find that I see it coming out in my kids sometimes. I'm like, okay, I don't want you to have that quality, so I need to make sure that I'm showing you how I want you to be.
Oh, that's so hard because we talked before. I've got two younger girls, a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old, and what I've found in parenting so far is it just magnifies any weakness in my ability to navigate emotions, my personality, anything, because they're testing the boundaries constantly, which means they're testing your ability to regulate your own emotions and how your ability to regulate successfully or unsuccessfully immediately wears off on them. And you start to see, just like you're noticing, the little things that you do that maybe you want to change or maybe aren't as healthy as you'd like them to be, your kids start to emulate that as well. How difficult
Yes.
was that, seeing that and realizing that when you first started having kids?
Oh, so hard. I mean, they're a little mirror. They reflect back every bad quality and good quality, but you notice the bad ones more
of
that you
course.
have.
Yeah. And would you say that working through that was good? Meaning like, okay, this kind of forced, it sounds like you were already self-aware of some of the things that you wanted to change, the impatience-ness, the New Yorker style of you were trying to tone down. But would you find that having those kids forced you to kind of navigate through those things maybe on a quicker timeline than what would have happened otherwise?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I still see it even now. I'm still learning how to navigate that. I still see traits in them that maybe I am like, okay, I know where that came from and I don't like that.
Yeah.
So it's still a learning process.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I can relate so much because in our household, it sounds like the dynamics are, I wouldn't say similar, but my wife and I are both actually relatively calm and patient people. And before having kids, I couldn't imagine, like, because I've been around kids a ton before we had kids, my wife and I, and I've heard of this, it's going to bring out, at times the worst in you when you have kids is you're going to get impatient, you're going to get frustrated, emotions are going to get let out. And so I was like, okay, yeah, I'm evaluating Candace and I's personalities. I'm like, I don't really see much there that's going to, break us. And boy, was I wrong. Just having these two girls, and they're girls too. I can only imagine boys. Like everything I hear about boys is how chaotic and crazy and energetic they are. And our girls are already chaotic, crazy, and energetic. So I can only imagine the level above that, which a boy would bring. But yeah, it quickly made us realize like, oh yeah, there's some things we need to work on that we knew before, but I don't want to say worse, but they're being brought out. Again, the magnifying glass, the spotlight, because the girls are constantly testing things and pushing buttons. So
That's what kids do.
that's what they do. Man,
Sometimes we even do that as adults, don't we?
yeah,
Yep.
it's making me realize how important emotional regulation is. It's the crux of almost anything. Because if I can regulate my emotions in any given situation, especially around my kids, that is going to change the outcome of my behavior, and the behavior, it's going to impact pretty significantly the behavior of others around me, whether that's my kids' behavior, them feeding off and seeing that, and therefore not reacting emotionally or negatively when certain things, don't go smooth, or vice versa. If I react a little bit more emotionally to something, kind of off the cuff, like all of us do naturally at times, they feed off of that and catch that. And I'll catch my girls saying things where I'm like, do I say that? Like, I don't realize I say that.
Yeah.
Kids is like, yeah, you say that.
Yep. There's your little mirror.
It's hard. It's hard. But I did want to talk about motherhood a little bit more, because when we had spoke on the phone prior to on our prep call, you talked about you're kind of transitioning away from, maybe, I don't know if I'd say away, but your life has been kind of revolved around training, races, events, all of that. Now that you're transitioning to more of a motherhood homeschooling, what is that? I mean, I got to imagine your definition of hard now is kind of changing as well. What does that look like today in terms of the day-to-day hard versus what it was in the training days?
Yeah, the hard thing now is just trying to find balance. In the training days, my training came first. I had a training plan I followed every day, and that was the number one thing. When that got done, then I went on to prepping dinner or whatever else I had to do. But now the kids and their schedules are 100% first, and I'm trying to figure out how to fit training and my personal goals in with that. So day to day, I get up and go to the gym in the morning. That's kind of a constant. So I at least have that. But figuring out how to get in some longer bike rides and runs hasn't really happened yet.
Mm-hmm.
So that's gotta figure that out a little bit. And part of that too is I had a coach through Marji since I actually hired him for Western States back in 2017. I've had the same coach.
Oh, okay.
And after Marji, I told him I needed a little break because we were going to switch to homeschooling, and I just wanted to take a little break from the scheduled training. And I think maybe I need to go back to having a coach. I think having it on paper and seeing that I have to check that box helps me to stay accountable, and at least have a better idea of how to hit the goals that I want to hit.
So it sounds like you kind of thrive off of having a structure in place. Like you're more maybe type A, generally speaking.
I'm very type A.
Okay. So I didn't want
I
to.
feel like a lot of endurance athletes are, because it would be hard to obtain that level of fitness without at least some form of structure.
Yeah.
Or some form of rigidity in your schedule.
And I gotta imagine too, again, going back to the parentinghood and transitioning from no kids to kids, being type A, you were always, I'm projecting again, because I would classify myself more along the type A spectrum. But for me, when I had kids, I had to give up so much more control in ways that I didn't think I would have to give up. And that made it really hard for me. There was obviously the things that you hear about, and when you have kids, you can't, you're going to have to refine and switch up your lifestyle. Everything's going to change, right? And I do that. I've been around kids, but it was the little things, the day-to-day things that I was like, oh, I got to give up that too. Like I can't have any structure almost, it felt like, does that resonate with you when you transition, or even to this day as you're going into the homeschooling?
It does. I like structure. I have like checklists for my kids each day, but I have learned that I need to be a little more relaxed about that checklist. And sometimes, if things are going well on a certain subject, we need to go with it. And if things aren't going well, we just need to close that and come back to it some other time. So I'm working through that of being able to kind of go with the flow a little bit more.
Is your husband the same, more structured, type A oriented, or would you say he's the opposite?
He's not. He's the opposite.
Okay. So you guys are balancing each other.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's why it works so well, right?
Yeah.
It does, yes.
How often does it come in conflict, would you say? The opposite personalities, I need something to be this way versus the kind of go with the flow?
It really doesn't. He's very go with the flow. So for the most part, he lets me kind of run the ship when it comes to scheduling type things. And I respect his opinion enough that if there's something that he definitely wants or needs, then I know to put my hands up and say, all right, you're in charge of this.
Okay. So you guys got a good dynamic.
Because he doesn't speak out that often. So I know when he does that it's important. And
yes.
I trust his wisdom.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's awesome. Now, with this transition going into homeschooling, what has been the hardest thing to kind of sacrifice or give up so far?
At first I'd probably say nothing because I was ready for a break, but now I'm kind of getting to the point where I really do want to start training again. I have the adventure itch, I would call it, watching the Crusher point to points. I'm a little jealous I'm not out there this week, although with all the wildfire smoke, not so much. But I have the itch to kind of do some of this longer adventure stuff. So now I'm starting to think I've got to figure out how to be able to get some bigger rides and stuff in there.
Now, with this homeschooling, what led you guys to believe that was the right path to transition out of public school into homeschool?
My kids had been saying for years that they hated school. They didn't want to go, and they hated it, especially my older son who was in 5th grade this past year. And I loved school growing up. They're both super smart. They weren't like struggling grade wise. They just didn't like it. And I just felt like in elementary school, you should be loving it. So I wanted to bring a joy to learning for them. I felt like at this age, it should all be about having fun. I mean, you need to do your work, but it shouldn't be something that you hate doing.
Right. You go.
All right. Kristy, what part of your faith life played a part of that decision to have your kids homeschooled? Was any part of that a factor?
It did, yeah. I think if you would have asked me 10 years ago if I would ever homeschool my kids, it would have been absolutely not. It was not something I would ever consider.
Yeah.
But I felt like God was leading me there. As I was done with Marji and looking at what was next, I really felt a tug on my heart that was the right call.
Did you have to go through some difficult conversations or challenges trying to make that decision with you and your husband?
Yeah, we definitely went through some difficult conversations. He was really worried that if we went down that road that I would kind of lose myself and everything that I enjoyed doing, and he didn't want to see that. So ultimately, he kind of left the decision up to me because I was going to be doing the majority of the work, but he trusted that it was the right call when I told him that I felt like I had prayed about it and this is what I was supposed to be doing.
Did you resonate with some of his worries and concerns, or did you have different concerns and worries transitioning into that? Or
I didn't. I had a complete sense of peace about it, which is kind of what made me know that it was the right thing to do.
Okay, interesting. Yeah. I feel like it's so hard to discern what it is that you want versus what it is that maybe God's pulling you to do. And that's something that I really, really struggle with. If I'm trying to make a decision and there's two different directions, it's like, which way do I go? And I can never tell whether I'm the one driving the ship here, or if he's the one driving the ship. Because sometimes I'd be like, well, yeah, I should do this because it's going to be X, Y, and Z, and it's going to be. But then I'm like slowing down. Like, wait a minute. These are the things that I enjoy. This is like a selfish, kind of approach that just organically I would, kind of use as a decision making. So sometimes it's hard for me to pull back and know which direction to take and where he's pulling me. How have you learned to listen to that voice a little bit better over the years?
Yeah, I 100% agree with everything you just said. With the homeschooling thing, it was easy because like I said, I felt peace, and it was a situation where I personally did not ever want to do that. So I just felt like this is definitely the right call. There's no selfish ambitions here. But on the other side of the coin there, Marji was something that I personally felt like I was being called to do. From the first time I did it, I was like, I saw people doing this on a bike and I was like, I don't know how to ride a bike, but I am supposed to be doing that. Like it was something that I just felt called to do. But I also, every year training for this race, I did feel like it was selfish. And I would kind of look back on it and be like, am I really doing this because I feel like I'm called to do it? Or am I doing this for myself? And that was really something that was hard to struggle with because I felt like everyone around me felt like it was selfish, but I felt in my heart that it was what I was supposed to be doing. And I don't know that I have a good answer of how to know where that voice is coming from. I kind of always default to an old pastor of ours. I had asked this exact question to him, and he said that when you're listening to those voices, are they bringing you peace and joy, or is it making you anxious? And if it's bringing you peace and joy, it's God. If it's making you anxious, it's probably not. So that was kind of the discernment that he gave me, and I think that's helped me kind of sort things out throughout the years of who is really telling me to do these things.
It's such a simple way to approach it. Mm-hmm. Sometimes we overthink things. I know I feel like everybody does this, but I know I've catch myself doing it often, just overthinking it. And God's like, no, it's right here. I've already showed you.
Yeah.
And oh, sorry. I was going to say with that, it kind of goes into the whole Marji experience. It took me, I think 4 years of doing the 100 to buckle, maybe it was even 5. But I rode a single speed for the first time like 3 years ago, maybe it was 2 years ago. I don't know. It was a couple of years ago. And from the first time I rode that bike, I just felt completely at peace and like I was so full of joy. And I'm like, I love this. Like, I want to do this. I don't want to ride anything else but this bike. I just felt like it was my purpose to be on that bike. But then I kind of put it in the closet because I didn't think it was possible to buckle on it. And it was one of those things that I was like, well, yeah, I really enjoyed that, but why would God want me on a single speed? That doesn't make any sense. And then before Marji this year, I had been training, and honestly, I felt that anxious, didn't really feel like I was doing the right thing. And I was kind of in a bad place like a month out from Marji this past year. And I think it was 2 weeks out from the race, I crashed in Ramba and I sprained my right thumb and I couldn't shift. And I was like, well, I guess I'm single speeding Marji. And as soon as I made that decision, I had complete like peace again with the situation. And people were asking me, they're like, oh, I heard you're single speeding, but I also heard that you were supposed to be going for the buckle this year. Which one is it? And I'm like, it's both.
Yeah.
Let's get
it.
it
Wasn't like, it wasn't a confidence in myself. Like I knew based on the numbers that I couldn't buckle on a single speed. Like all the training rides I had done, I had done it. I'd gone out and done the first 30 miles on a single speed like 3 times, trying to make it work, trying to hit buckle pace, and I couldn't do it. So while I knew that it wasn't like possible, I also knew it was going to happen as soon as I made that decision. I just felt in my heart it was going to happen. So I don't know.
Yeah, that's crazy. It goes back to the overthinking versus, the discernment. Is it your voice? Is it his? I mean, how do you kind of help it? Mm-hmm. And I'm unpacking that in my head, and I'm trying to think about other areas in my life where I felt that peace or that sense of there wasn't a questioning, which makes it obvious, maybe more obvious again, like, the pastor that you had spoken with kind of suggested as a way to discern, like that's the direction to take because there's just ultimate peace in that direction. So maybe that's a good way, a little nugget for me to take moving forward here that I'm just kind of internalizing as you're talking about this. But this does get me to something that you mentioned here in your bio. So every time we do a podcast, I'd like the person we're having send a bio of themselves, give me a little bit of their background. And we've been talking about the enormous amount of endurance events, accolades, everything that you've done. But what I found fascinating in your bio is that I think it began with follower of Christ, wife, homeschool mom, veterinarian, coach, athlete. And I was curious, that order, was it intentional, on how you kind of described yourself and what you identified as? Or was that just,
good question.
Were you just kind of riffing off the cuff?
No, it was intentional. I think that's how God wants us to be. God comes first, then spouse, then kids, and then everything else.
I'm just going to stop right there because what you just said is a gold nugget. You said spouse before children.
100%.
And that is, I see so many families get that backwards.
Yeah.
And that's a recipe for failure every time. So anyways, I just want to stop. Continue, Austin.
Yeah. No, that's good. I unfortunately had friends who have been on the receiving end of learning that the hard way, essentially. And that's one of the biggest pieces of advice I received shortly after Candace and I had Maggie, our first daughter, who's now 3.5, which was I can't remember the exact wording, but the gist of it was focus on your relationship with your wife. Like, don't let that go to the wayside just because you start having kids. Because just like you're saying, most people, like the kids almost become their identity. And the parents sort of evolve into this roommate, just kind of surviving the day to day. All the energy goes towards the kids whether it's schooling, whether it's daycare, whatever it is that you're doing in the day to day. And it's so easy to let the husband, wife, the relationship there start to kind of dwindle down. Did you have challenges with that after you had kids, or was that something you guys always were at the forefront of?
That was something we were always right at the forefront of, that before we ever had kids, we had those discussions of our relationship comes first.
What have you done specific on a practical level that you found helped you the most keep that relationship, that focus at the forefront?
When the kids were really young, we always made it a point to still like go on dates and do things together. I mean, I remember when Brantley, my oldest son, was like 3 weeks old. He was a newborn. I left him with my mother-in-law so Greg and I could go play golf.
Mm-hmm.
Just little things. We always do things together. Don't stop dating your spouse.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
Yeah, that's great advice.
Yeah, it's really good advice, because right now I'm in the thick of having, again, a 1-year-old and a 3.5-year-old, and it's hard because the day-to-day demands of that age specifically, there's just so much more hands-on, obviously, that you're doing. And there's amazing things that come with that, but there's also the drawbacks of time. You're investing far more time, I'm finding, in the day-to-day as a result of it, and it takes away from, sometimes it kind of, maybe, I shouldn't say takes away, but it sort of distracts, at least me, from setting aside time with my wife. But one of the hard things about doing that is having a good support system around you in order to do so. Do you
Yes.
guys have a strong support system around you that enables you to, prioritize these things like date nights and et cetera? Or was that hard at first?
We do not have a support system in Marquette. We don't have any family here. We're starting to make some good friends now because we've been here for 5 years. But when we moved to Marquette, that was definitely difficult. Downstate, we did. Greg's parents were initially, when we were way downstate, they were 20 minutes from us, and then we moved to Charlevoix, and they were a couple hours. So we had them fairly close, but now they're 5 hours from us. So they do a great job of supporting us when asked to come up for a weekend, like for Marji or whatever, but not for the date night, on
What
a
is
random
that?
weeknight.
How do you do that now? We've got virtually no one around you. How do you make it work?
Well, we're blessed to be able to hire a babysitter, I guess, is the
So you
answer,
just-
which I know not everyone can afford.
Sure,
but,
sure.
but yeah, we make it a point to just hire babysitters.
Okay. Is that something that you wish, the trade-off of, because this is something I talk about with my dad all the time, because I love Marquette so much. My wife and I eloped in Marquette. We've spent, obviously the Marji is a big part of our family's life. I've been there for so many years. Obviously my dad's done it, the race a ton. We've done it once together with my brother. I've come up for helping support aid stations, my dad, all that. So Marquette has been a big part of our life. And the only thing that keeps my wife and I moving to Marquette is family, because family is so important to us. And our whole family life is down here, downstate.
I'm just waiting for an excuse to move there. So
I know,
I'm
and that's what we
already
talk
ready,
about every
so-
time. We're like, man, I just wish we could just relocate our family to Marquette and everything would be fine. Making the
we might have
decision
just
to move
started
to Marquette, did you have similar struggles of like, uprooting, the family life you're not going to be here. We're going to be solo, especially with having kids. Was that a difficult decision, or was it like, this is where we're meant to be?
It was a really difficult decision because Greg's parents were actually looking at the house next door to us in Charlevoix. They wanted to move there. And we're really close to them. Like, that would have been a really good situation. But ultimately, we felt called to Marquette. We felt like that was where we were supposed to be, and we had to follow that. So it was hard in the sense that we knew we were letting people down, but we knew in our hearts it was the right move for us.
I'm assuming that discernment, that piece was there, kind of like what we were talking about
It
earlier
was.
when that decision.
And it's still there. Like, every time that we drive downstate, as soon as I get back across the bridge, I just like can let out a breath of air. Like, I just feel like this is where I'm supposed to be.
Okay. So wow, it's still that powerful. And your husband would
It
agree?
is. Yeah. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's good. Okay. Well, maybe we just need to make the move, Dad.
Yeah,
That's
I'm
the
ready.
song. I'm going to pretend there's peace internally and say it's from God, and that'll be my excuse when I tell everyone that I'm moving. Okay, so let me go back to the order of how the bio description we were talking about a minute ago there. You talked about, follower of Christ was the first thing you had mentioned in your order of, kind of what you self-identify as and the things that are most important to you. Was that always the case where that was kind of at the forefront, or did that sort of evolve or rearrange your priorities over time?
Definitely not always the case. When I was young, I was raised as a Catholic, but like kind of the typical Easter, Christmas Catholic that didn't really have any relationship with Jesus. And I went through some pretty dark times after college. And I think that's when my true relationship with God developed, which I think is probably accurate for most people. I think whenever you go through something really hard, that's
Yeah.
kind of when you have to reach out for help.
Yeah.
So no, definitely not an always thing. It's definitely been something that's developed throughout my adult years.
Can I ask if you feel comfortable talking about it at all? What some of those difficult moments that you went through that kind of shifted you into kind of giving up and letting God in?
Yeah, I actually was married right out of college. I married a guy who I had dated all through college and through part of vet school, and we got married and divorced a year later. And throughout vet school, I went from being a college athlete to not having time to work out at all. So I was like trying to get back in shape and couldn't even run a mile without stopping. So I think it was just like, being completely out of physical shape, plus the emotional baggage of going through a divorce when I was like 22 years old or something, or 21 years old. I was in a dark place.
Was there a specific moment during that time that stands out the most that you just kind of surrendered?
I can't think of a specific moment right now. I mean, there was lots of moments when I was, laying in bed crying and talking to God, but I can't think of like anything very specific.
Did you have anyone around you that also was had a strong faith background that you could sort of lean on a little bit or reach out to for advice or connect with at all? Or were you just kind of
Yeah,
solo?
one of my best friends in college, even all through college, she was always trying to get me to come to church with her, and she was always kind of planting those seeds. So I had her to talk to through it all.
Okay.
And yeah, she was definitely a big part of me finding my way.
And when did you start to notice that rearranging of priorities? When did you start noticing things were changing for the better by putting him first?
It probably actually wasn't until I met my husband. He had a really good relationship with Jesus, and he grew up in the faith. His dad's was a Methodist minister. He's retired now. So he had kind of grown up that way, and he never fell from that. So when I met him and we have started having some deep conversations, he made it a point that that was extremely important to him, that Christ comes first. And, we found a church together and started learning more and more. And then all of that kind of fell into place for me as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, it does seem like a lot of times when you're broken down and stripped, and I think about this a lot too, because I mean, I'm in a bit of I don't want to say a spiritual battle, but I don't know. You're always wrestling with God. I'm always wrestling with God. I like to dive deep into feeling confident around, especially around something so sensitive like faith, something you can't see, touch, feel, or objectively validate. It's like for me, that's really hard to say I'm putting all my faith in something like this, so I have to try to work through all of the arguments for and against God, the resurrection. I'm constantly researching and doing things, and I think sometimes to a detriment. So I'm always in a bit of a wrestle and a challenge. Is there anything with your faith that still to this day that you kind of wrestle with when it comes to either the concept of God, Jesus, prayer, whatever it is?
I think the things I wrestle with the most, and this actually has probably come from homeschooling, is trying to reconcile science and the Bible, especially when it comes to like old Earth versus young Earth and that kind of thing. And ultimately, I know it doesn't matter, right? Like it doesn't matter how old the Earth is or how it all fits together if you just trust that it does and that He made it. And I believe that because I've seen what He's done in my life. I've seen how He's changed my life and all of the things He's helped me through. And I feel His presence. And that's all I can tell people is I think if you give everything up and you allow Him to come into your life, you'll feel that presence. And that's something that I can't make you feel it, right?
Yeah,
you have to feel it for
personal
yourself.
experience.
But when you do feel it, you'll know that He's there. And there's nothing that can change that.
Yeah, that's well said. Very well said. I spent a lot of years struggling with like what you talk about, Austin, but literally 2 decades of my life, and we've talked about this a little bit on podcasts, and it's probably like 3 of the chapters, maybe 4 of the chapters in the book I wrote about it, and it takes up a lot of it, and it is a wrestling match, but it literally, I came to the same exact conclusion that you did, Kristy. I mean, I couldn't explain a lot of things, and whether evolution and all these other things, and humans and science are constantly changing anyways. But one thing that doesn't change is the Bible and God's word and his promises to us. So I love how you said that.
In your background in this, you said you grew up Catholic. Was there, but you said more of like a traditional, no one really was deep into the faith, and it was more like a cultural Christian kind of a thing where, we kind of celebrated Easter, but it wasn't really about Christ, or, what, fill in the blank. So does your family have any strong ties to faith and Christ at all? Or is it mainly like you and your husband and your local, Christian community that you're in that mainly pull things together?
It's mainly me and my husband and his family. I try to share the word with my mom and with my family. And, I think that I'm at least planting seeds there, and maybe her faith is growing a little bit. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I don't think that the church that I grew up in did a very good job of that. It was more just about this is what you're supposed to do or not supposed to do, and you have to go to communion and that kind of thing. And I don't know, my mom doesn't really understand the relationship part.
Yeah, it sounds like you grew up in a church where it's all about religion, not relationship, which I think is very common, especially in that
That's a good way to put it.
But, yeah.
Yeah, so with that, let me kind of shift gears a little bit. I mean, still talking about the faith aspect of, some of the things that you've wrestled with, some of the things that have transitioned you out of it. What would you say in terms of the identity aspect of it? What are some things you've had to sort of slowly remove from your identity as a result of this shift? Anything specific you're like, okay, it was either something kind of revealed to me that I used to enjoy and partake in a lot that I now, slowly was like, okay, I have to stop doing this. I need to change. I need to shift.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things. In college, I'm not really proud of the person that I was. I partied a lot. I had a lot of boyfriends.
Kids. Sure.
Yeah, I was a typical college kid. And so there's that aspect of it. And then again, like we talked about, as far as like the New Yorker personality and kind of having that tougher exterior, I think that's been a big part that I feel that, I need to be kinder and softer. So yeah, I definitely think that the Lord has changed me kind of as I've gone through my adult years.
He's kind of changed you from the inside, huh?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And I don't miss, there's nothing that I'm like, oh, I need to take that out. It's just done. It's not, it just happens. I think when you give everything up like that, I think that those changes are just made, and you look back at those things kind of like, oh, I can't believe that was really part of my life.
Yeah.
You mentioned something, shifting gears a little bit on the prep call, about this adventure racing world championships.
Oh, yeah, I want to get into that.
So I do want to shift a little bit to this.
And we need to circle back to finish your story about Marji, about the single speed.
So
we don't want to forget that.
Maybe
I know listeners are like, well, what happened?
Well, let's unpack that first. So the Marji single speed,
sure.
we'll come back to this. Unpack that Marji single speed race and what happened going in. This is not really on paper possible, but you had this peace, this confidence. How did the race unfold, and what ended up happening?
Yeah. So a week out, I made the decision. Okay, I got to pull the plug. I can't shift, so I have to ride a single speed.
Oh, this
so
was
then
a
I had
week
to try
out.
and figure out 1 week out. Yep. I injured myself about 2 weeks out. My husband kept saying, give it a week, it'll heal. And it wasn't healing. So a week out, I made the decision. So then I had to decide what gearing to run. And I didn't really have any time to figure this out. It was just had to kind of try a couple things. I had 1 week, and I had always ran 30-20 was kind of the gearing I had ran around here going into it. And that was what I had done all my time trials on. And it wasn't fast enough. So I started playing with gearing a little bit, and I'm like, well, I don't even know if I can finish this thing on a single speed. Maybe I should try an easier gearing just to get to the finish line. So I threw a 28 on. So I tried 28, 30, and I rode the first 18 miles, and it felt super easy, but I was really slow. And I'm like, all right, I know I can finish it on this, but there's no chance of buckling. So I was talking to Spencer from West End, and he was kind of asking me, he's like, well, how fast do you think you have to go to buckle? And I was like, well, I think if I could average, I had this number in my head. I'm like, if I could average 16 miles an hour when I'm spinning out on the bike path and on those flatter sections in the beginning, then I think that would keep me on pace. I need to be able to hit 16. And I think it was him that introduced me to, there's like some online program where you can plug in what gearing you're using and it give you your speed at each cadence. And it was, so I was playing with that and I ended up being 28:18 would put me at 16 miles an hour when I was spinning out. So I was like, well, I'm going to go with that. So I ended up just throwing that on and that's what I ran. And I did do a little bit of a time trial in the first 18 miles, like that in that week out from the race. And I was close to buckle pace on it. And I was like, I have no clue if I can hold this. Like it feels kind of hard, but it'll at least give me a chance to buckle. So that was what I went with. And I kind of had the attitude of, I'm going to kind of put the gearing on that I know holds the right pace. And if God wants this to happen, then he'll do the rest.
So you got to walk us through the race. Can you walk us through like from start to finish?
Yeah. So start to finish, I was planning on doing this race with 3 other women, Sid, Julie Momber, and Kate Boyle. So day before the race, they all came to my house to kind of go over planning and logistics of how we were going to help each other. Because that was the idea, was we were all going to work together, taking turns pulling. Because one of the reasons I think women haven't buckled this race before is that women and men have different strengths. And when you start Marji, there's very few women, especially very few women at buckle pace. And you kind of get in this group with all these guys who are putting down a ton of power on the flat road sections, but then kind of backing off on the trail. And I think mostly for women, my strength is the technical and the climbing. And then we get to the road and I can't keep up with those guys. So we thought maybe having our own little women pack that we could go our own pace on the road and help pull each other would help us. So that was the idea, was we were going to ride together. So we had that meeting at my house and we were kind of going over plans, and I had to tell them that I'm riding single speed. So I don't think I'll be able to keep up with you guys off the start line. But hopefully my goal was to catch up with them in Ramba and to kind of help them through that, because that was my strength, was knowing those trails. So that was the plan. And we got to the start line and I kind of lost them right at the start. The 3 of them started together and I was a row or 2 back. And race starts and everything starts going well. I get to top of the world and I'm in a pretty good position. Coming down the backside of top of the world, my chain fell off for the first time. So about 50 people go by me as I'm putting my chain back on. Get it back on and I start going and I'm like, oh great, I hope this isn't going to be a problem all day. Well, it was. It fell off 4 more times in the first 50 miles of the race. So that was,
I did not know this.
Yeah, that was not great. I actually, after the race, I figured out my derailleur was bent because I have to run a chain tensioner, and my derailleur going to my chain tensioner was bent, but I don't know when I hit it, if I hit it during the race or during one of my time trials. So that was really the only thing that went wrong on race day, though. I felt great for most of the day, and any time that I had like any cramps creeping up or anything, I just prayed that they would go away, and they did. Like it really was a peaceful, wonderful Marji. Like I just look back on the race and there was never any like really lows or anything like there had been in previous years. It was by far my easiest Marji.
Wow.
Man, that's crazy. So tell us, like, first tell the listeners what buckling means, like what time frame that is, and then can you tell us where you all finished?
Yeah, so earning a buckle is going under 12 hours, which no female had ever done before last year. And it ended up, I finished in 11:55, and I think Sid was 11:50, and Kate was, I think, 11:45, I want to say. And then Julie ended up crashing about 20 miles out from the finish and didn't finish, which happened right in front of me. That was horrible. I had like just caught up to her and I was talking to her and she fell. Oh, it was awful.
So that's why I was seeing the post.
For her.
That's why I was seeing the post, Kristy makes 3. I remember seeing that on Facebook. I don't know if Todd posted it or someone, maybe Marji and stuff.
Yeah.
And I was like, Kristy makes 3. I was confused, but not, so it was those 3 that ended up being the
3
first.
3 of us buckled.
And so you 3 were the first to buckle.
The first 3 to ever.
Wow.
Yep, only 3.
That's crazy. Were you the only one doing the single speed, or were they doing the single speed as well?
No, I was the only one on a single speed.
Okay. So you're the only one that's buckled single speed.
For women. I think there's been a handful of guys.
Okay.
Yeah, not many people.
That's crazy.
Actually, most people won't even attempt it on single speed.
Yeah.
First of all, so there's the precursor. But Kristy, when did you, during the race, where or when did you catch up? Or did you end up catching up with them and kind of riding through Ramba like your plan was? Or did you just solo the whole thing?
I
Okay.
was by myself the whole race. The only
Okay.
one I had ever caught was Julie because she had fallen off the back of their pace line.
Okay.
So yeah, I never caught the other two.
Yeah.
Wow.
But I was
Congratulations.
right on my paces all day. Like I knew what I had to hit each day. Like for each, I don't know, every 30 miles or so, I had a time I had to hit, and I was like dead on 5 minutes ahead of that time all day long. Like I never fell off of that.
Even with
So
your
my
chain
pace was
falling
just-
off and
No,
once
I
your
was dead on the paces.
man, that's great. Once your chain fell off, say the second or third time, I mean, or maybe even the first time, where were you at mentally? Were you like, because it's these ultra endurance
yeah.
events are so mental. Where were you at? Like, what were you thinking? Where was your mindset?
I think I got frustrated a little bit, but pop it back on and keep riding. I just, was really praying that it would stop. That was the big thing. And it did once I got out of South Trails. I never had it fall off in Ramba. It was popping off on all the high speed downhills. I don't really know why that's the case, but that was the only place I had trouble with it. And Ramba's not that high speed, so
Yep.
no problems there.
Is that usually the mindset you have when you're in the middle of a race, something goes wrong? Is it just like frustration at first, like anyone would probably have, but you don't fixate on it, it sounds like, and you just kind of be like, okay, let's just hope that doesn't happen again, and then you move on. Is that usually your mindset, or was that different on this race?
I think that's usually my mindset. Obviously, I'm guilty of kind of going down the rabbit hole of negative thoughts like anyone else can be at times. But usually I try to embrace whatever discomfort or whatever's going wrong and either like try to recognize it as an opportunity to grow or figure out how I can resolve it. So a lot of times, like during the Crusher 500, for instance, if I had things going wrong, I would think about how to resolve that, and I would count like on my fingers, like what are the 5 things I need when I get to this next gas station or whatever to try and problem solve and to try and turn my attitude around.
So you just stay focused, really.
I just stay focused. Yeah, it's all about, and I run checklists in my head of like, how do I figure this out and what do I need?
Yeah.
Now, would you say that race was, because you mentioned like you were at peace with the race, it was like the most comfortable you've ever had, felt, having that race, very little stomach issues, nothing like, typically you would experience during a long endurance race like this. Out of all the races that you've done endurance-wise, was that one of the easiest in terms of everything, obviously excluding the chain issues? Was there any other race that was like went super smooth and had a really great outcome like this?
No, this was by far my smoothest, easiest race I have ever done.
Wow.
Like, I don't even remember like really being in any discomfort. I had like slight cramps in my legs and that was it.
No stomach issues? No nothing?
No, I didn't even have to stop to go pee.
Wow. You just
You just
went on the
sweat
bike.
out or
You just
whatever.
went on the bike. That's
I
what
did not
said.
go on the bike. No, I don't know. Everything just went perfectly to plan. It was
Wow,
the
that's
smoothest
crazy.
race I've ever had,
Man, well,
which it had to be. In order for me to buckle, I knew it had to
Yeah,
be.
you had
Yeah.
to. Everything had to be lined up perfectly.
what a great parallel to life. I mean, you know, 2 weeks out, you're probably panicking, thinking, I can't shift. I've been training for this thing forever. You're so focused on trying to stay with this, with this plan that you had, and then all of a sudden it gets flipped upside down. But yet God somehow redeems that. That's just crazy.
Yeah,
that is crazy.
going back to that a little bit. So when I got injured, like I had a very short amount of time of like panicking and thinking it was all going downhill. To be honest, like within an hour, I was very set on the fact that I was going to single speed. So my husband, he like for a week tried to talk me out of it. And he's like, he told me, he goes, you're in your own head and you're looking for an excuse to have because you're afraid you can't do it. Like, that's basically what he told me.
Yeah.
And like, I kind of thought about it a little. I'm like, I don't know. Like, yeah, I can see how it looks like that. But I'm like, no, I think I could do it on a single speed. And I think that's just what I'm supposed to do. And I just, again, I had that piece of this is where I belong and it's what I'm supposed to do. So I really didn't have a whole lot of like feeling like everything was for nothing.
Yeah, that's cool.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
You were going to say something though a minute ago.
No,
Were you
I
gonna
think
elaborate on that.
Yeah, we
Okay,
kind of
okay.
covered it. So I
right.
want to talk about this adventure
I know.
racing.
Let's
though, man.
transition
I'm
here.
stoked to talk about this.
You've done
Yeah, let's do
so
it.
many things in your career. We talked about CrossFit a little bit. We talked about the ultra endurance, from running to mountain biking to these obstacle course races. And then on this prep call, you're like, hey, yeah, I'm doing this adventure racing world championship in Oregon. I've never done it before. What made you say yes to this, and why now?
Carrie Laurie reached out to me and they needed a 4th woman to be part of this team. And I don't know, why not? I had kind of like, I think I posted something on Facebook about looking for a new adventure, a new race to do. So she thought, hey, this is the perfect person to put on our team for this. So I thought it'd be a good adventure. So I'm excited for it. I'm in so far over my head with this, but
I love that.
Can you tell us what, because a lot of people
say.
don't know what this is. So can you tell us what adventure racing is?
yeah, so this particular race, it's a 30-hour race where you have to get as many checkpoints as you can, and you only can use a map and compass. So there's no cell phones or any online GPS type thing. So map, compass, 30 hours, find the checkpoints, and you can use a mountain bike for some of it. You have to hike some of it, and some of it is actually whitewater rafting. We have pack rafts. So that's the kind of the three disciplines, and you also don't know ahead of time of how you are using all those implements, like whether or not it's going to be like you have to bike to these ones and you have to hike to these ones, or it might just be you figure out how you want to get to them all.
So you just show up, and then whatever duration, the race itself, there's three disciplines you're going to have to go through eventually at some point. But showing up to the race at the starting line, you could start off on a bike, you could start off whitewater rafting, like it could be any one of these. Is that the understanding?
Yeah.
Okay.
I have no clue what we're doing. We'll get handed maps probably that morning, and we have to figure out our route and what we're doing.
So you're told that morning, here's a map, this is the destination, or here are the checkpoints, rather, you said. And then it's just collecting as many as you can within the 30-hour time limit. And then is it the goal, whoever has the most obviously would win?
Yeah, the goal is whoever has the most in the shortest amount of time.
Okay.
So if you get them all, then it has to be whoever got them all the fastest.
Sure. Right. Wow. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you had said in the prep call too that you've obviously never done this before, but you did a prep race, adventure race, like a month or so ago. What was that race, and walk me through that?
Yeah, Carrie and I did an adventure race down in Muskegon, Michigan. That was just an 8-hour one it was road biking, it was biking, hiking, and paddling a canoe. So we did that together just as kind of an introduction to this whole different sport. It was super cool. I finally learned how to really use a compass and look at a map and figure out what it means when you see all the lines, all the topo lines. And I got pretty good by the end. Carrie was mostly navigating for us, but by the end I was she was letting me do a little bit.
Yeah.
I wasn't too far off. So I was getting the hang of it. But I think my job for this 4-person team is going to mostly be the runner to punch our card for all the checkpoints and do all the extra hard work. We've got some expert navigators on the team and some pretty good paddlers.
So each person kind of has their own role, it sounds like, then their own expertise that lends itself.
Yeah.
So with your expertise, you're saying you're kind of you're the one who checks in. What was it you said that you're running from to do the check-ins?
Yes.
Is that?
So usually they give you either a card that you have to hole punch at each one of these checkpoints, or sometimes it's even a thing that you scan at each one. I don't know what it's going to be for this one, but that person usually has to go a little further. The rest of the team has to always be within a certain number of feet of you, but they could wait on the trail and make me run to the checkpoint and back. So they're kind of making me be the rabbit because I'm the youngest one on our team.
Okay.
So they decided that fitness is my expertise.
Yeah, right. Put it to work. I like it. Who's the whitewater rafting expert on that team is what I want to know.
I'm going to cheat and look on my phone really quick because I can't remember all of the teammates' names.
That's got to be the craziest out of all the disciplines that you have to do.
Yeah, because that's a whole different skill set than being an endurance athlete.
Whole nother skill set.
Yeah. Let me see if I can find
To me, navigating, I did one adventure race. It was a little mini one at a county park. And I had trouble navigating.
Yeah.
And I had navigated with a map and compass a lot out west multiple times, but I hadn't done it in years. You get spoiled with your phone.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
I have a hard time navigating around where I live if I don't, you know what I mean? I go by place markers. I don't go by streets and anything like that.
Maps it's a whole different game.
That's a whole nother level of, you throw me in that environment and I'm going to be I'll probably get 20 feet and already give up.
Where am I at?
Yeah, that's exactly how I anticipate it.
Our team is Carrie Lowry, Lisa Randall, and Susie Farmer. And Lisa and Susie are the two that have more whitewater rafting experience and paddling experience. Okay. So we'll be relying on them.
And this is out in Oregon, right? At the end of the year, did you say?
Yeah. In October.
October, okay.
End of October. Yep.
And this is obviously it's Adventure Racing World Championship. So this is everyone globally comes together for this one event. how do you qualify for it? Do you have to win certain events to lead up to this to qualify?
I think so. To be honest, I know very little about this
I
whole
love
sport,
that.
but
You're just
yeah,
jumping
I
in.
think that
Yeah.
Lisa and Susie, I think, had qualified for it, and then they had put together a team to use their spot that they had qualified for.
Interesting.
So I have a question, Kristy.
Yeah.
This is obviously you're way out of your comfort zone. I mean, you kind of just had talked about that, but what are you most worried about in this race? Because obviously you're in a foreign environment here.
Letting the team down. These are all
I
like
thought you were going to say
Caesar
paddling or
adventure
something.
Yeah,
I wasn't
it's just-
sure. But
No, I just don't want to be the person that holds us back from winning.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. So now you're making me think of what we talked about with your homeschooling earlier. Obviously, your normal fitness routine is probably off. You had mentioned a couple times about how you're trying to figure in to get some long runs or long rides. You know, do you have a little bit of a plan in place? How are you feeling about getting your fitness prepared? Because that's not that far away.
Yeah, I'm thinking I need to hire my coach again.
Okay.
That's
Start
number
there.
one. And I need to do a lot of hiking. So what I learned
Yeah.
during the Muskegon adventure race is that I'm like fairly in good shape for running, but hiking up those steep inclines off trail is a whole different ball game. My like low back and glutes were so sore after that race, and that was like very minimal compared to what this race in Oregon will have. Because it's not, you have to go down these like steep ravines to get to the checkpoint. They always put them either at like the top of a hill or at the bottom, and there's no trail to get there. So you're climbing up or down like a 40% slope. So I need to do a lot of really, really steep hiking to get
Jeez.
myself ready.
Man, that's cool.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I'm getting pretty stoked, man. I haven't done anything with endurance in a while, but
Yeah.
I just want to leave the studio right now.
We're just gonna do the
Jump
we're
on my
signing
bike.
up adventure racing.
Yep.
We're doing it. We'll be there in Oregon. But
I don't know about that.
yeah. All right.
Yeah,
so
I'm excited for it.
That's
let
awesome.
me close things out a little bit here. Looking back, every season of your life, you've had something difficult, some new challenge, whether it be athletics, veterinary school, marriage, homeschooling. Obviously, you have all these endurance things. If you could go back and maybe sit down and have a conversation with your 25-year-old self, what hard would you have her spending less time on, and what hard would you encourage her to embrace more?
Ooh, that's a good question. Oh, I don't know if I have an answer for that.
Is there something that sticks out where you're like, man, I spent way too much time in this domain of my life that I wish I would have spent more time here instead?
I feel like probably the only thing would be I spent too much time caring about what others thought and worrying about like trying to win or putting like that, especially with ultra running, I like wanted to be the best. Like that was what I cared about. And that focus definitely switched when I went on a bike where it became way less about me and more about God and how I can glorify him. Like I don't, and maybe that's because I've never been good enough at biking to like actually win like some short race or whatever, like Iceman. Like I'm not a strong cycler. It's all just about the suffering and becoming good at technical trail riding. So I think maybe that's the shift or that's what forced the shift. But that's probably been the biggest thing is I wish I would have looked back at my life back then and be like, stop caring what other people think. Stop trying to get attention of people and just focus on Christ.
Do you think that seeking attention, the validation through performance and metrics, was that from that childhood you talked about growing up, where you were kind of always having to perform or put in effort in order to get the result or get the love or whatever it is, fill in the blank? Does that, you feel like that's where that kind of stemmed from maybe?
I do. I think so. I think like the family that I grew up on they're wonderful, but they do put a lot of focus on like we're expected to be the best. I was expected to get straight A's. I was expected to play a sport in college, like all these expectations were definitely there. And I definitely put a lot of pressure on myself to succeed.
Yeah. Yeah. To a lesser degree, I can, my wife grew up not in a similar situation, very loving household, but there was a bit of like a performance expectation that was always kind of put on her to exceed in a certain area. And obviously it had many positive effects, similar to, it sounds like what it's, led you to do and become, and similar to my wife, but it's also had a lot of downsides that come with it, from lots of feeling of judgment, outside judgment, constantly having to feel like you always have to perform at a certain level. And one thing I realized when we had gotten together, I'm wired the opposite of that, thankfully. And I've noticed that over the years, that started to become like a surface level. It was deep down. It started to kind of surface up, especially as we had kids. That magnifying glass we talked about. And once she had a stable environment where love wasn't for us, I'm not saying this is your situation, but where love wasn't, predicated on performance or wasn't conditional. That's when she started to realize like, oh, this thing doesn't need to be on all the time. I don't always have to perform. I don't always have to hit X, Y, and Z. So we're kind of going through that right now a little bit and trying to unpack that. And it's really hard.
It's tough. Yeah.
It's like what I'm realizing as you get older is you're really just trying to unpack all the things that happened to you as a kid, both positive and negative, and you're trying to find the negative ones and just work through them as much as you can, both for yourself personally, but again, the magnifying glass, especially more so when you have kids, so that you don't carry anything on that you don't want to. So
yeah,
and I think
I totally agree with that.
Yeah, and I was just going to say that I just think the hustle culture and that type of mindset plays right into that as well. So it just kind of fosters that environment.
It feeds it. Yeah.
Yeah, it completely feeds it. So.
Yeah. Well, I love the conversation. Appreciate you coming on. And
it's been great.
If anyone wants to find out more about you, they want to check out what you're doing, your race, they want to keep up with this adventure race, where should we point them to?
Facebook or Instagram, I guess. I don't post too much, honestly. I'm not huge with social media, but that's probably the best place to see the results anyway of the adventure race.
Okay, just Kristy McBride on Facebook and Instagram?
Yeah, Instagram, I think it's KGB McBride.
Okay.
We'll put it in the show notes,
we'll put it in the show notes too as well. Awesome. I appreciate the time. Thanks again.
Thanks, Kristy.
Yeah. Nice to see you guys.